Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the VSI Pub on this bank holiday Monday. Glorious day outside, 70 odd degrees, and it's now 6 o'clock. So we're going to get into a conversation with the resident landlord of the pub, Michael Caulfield, and Fabrice Muamba, who needs no introduction. As always, Brian Dean is in the snug. And I'm going to hand you over to Tim, who is going to explain how those guys on the platform can engage and ask a couple of questions. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Tony. Quickly, so if you're on YouTube, you cannot ask questions. It's we shoot out trying to do so. If you're lucky enough to be a panelist, and we've got quite a few, type the questions at the bottom there, either for anybody that's on the panel, including Tony, and we'll get around to it ASAP. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Michael Caulfield. Fabrice, it doesn't need any introduction whatsoever. And Brian Dean, who I've got to say this one more time, in the absence of Andy, it was the first person to score a Premier League goal in history. So we've got some real history makers there. Michael, over to you.
Shoulder, I believe.
Jumping into Shankly.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tony, for the weather forecast and the news update there. And Fabrice, good to meet you. And it's nice to speak to Brian from the moon. Brian has obviously taken the social distancing to a completely new level, and he's speaking to us from Mars or Jupiter or Saturn or somewhere. And he's going to join in this 4 or 5 way chat in the Shankly Arms here this evening. Fabrice, good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you, Michael. How are you?
Listen, we did meet once. You left a big impression on me. I probably didn't leave as big an impression on you. You were speaking at an NMA event, and everyone listened to your story from what happened at White Hart Lane as it was then back in 2012. You still look like you could play 90 minutes tomorrow. You look fitter than Brian Dean, if I may say so, Fabrice. You look a lot fitter than Brian Dean. You still look as if you could.
I'll let you get away with that.
I know, but listen, you're on Saturn, so I can get away with anything tonight, or the moon or somewhere. So first and foremost, Fabrice, how are you tonight? Are you fit and well?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. I'm just like everybody else, all quarantine and doing kids or homeschooling the kids. So yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Got to ask you, are you a good school teacher?
Yeah, from 10 to 1 o'clock I'm good. Once come to about 2 o'clock I start to lose it. So I try to be as patient as I can. So having 3 boys is not always easy.
You've kept footballers' hours, haven't you? 10 till 1, and then you check out at 2 o'clock, and you've had enough by then, haven't you?
Yeah, around about 2 o'clock, I think myself and the kids are like, Dad, come on now, can we do something different? So yeah, you can go play now. So yeah, that's
How many languages do you speak, bud?
English, French, and obviously my native language, Lingala. So yeah.
I think that's incredible because Michael, I know a little bit about Fabrice and how particular he is with the guys' education. So I think you should ask him a little bit more about that because he's been really modest.
How many boys have you got, Fabrice?
I've got 3 boys.
And what age are they, if I can ask? This is far more interesting than talking about
the oldest
football.
one is 11, the middle one is 6, and the youngest one is 4 years old.
And do you think, are you going to be a good, are you going to pass on your linguistic skills and speaking many languages? And
yeah, I tend to speak them in my native language, and they respond me to English. So if they don't understand what I ask them, I told them in English what I mean. So next time when I ask them the same question, they'll be able to do it straight away.
I think one's just going to come and see you now, which is great. Fabrice, tell me now, you're at the PFA now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Delegate liaison.
Yeah.
And I think some of the teams you mentioned in the Northwest, Bolton Wanderers, Crewe Alexandra, I'm giving them their full titles here: Wigan Athletic, Carlisle United, Accrington Stanley, Salford City. What's the mood like in the Northwest among those clubs, Fabrice? Because we've got the Liverpools and Man U's and Man Cities with the fast money, but all the players in those clubs will be on a normal wage, and are they worried at the minute, Fabrice?
I think to be honest, I think the bigger boys, the Premier League lads should be okay. It's the guys in the Championship and the lower league that you feel for them because the impact they will have financially for the past 6 weeks has been incredible for them because we've never experienced anything like this before, and also it's also a lesson learned for everybody in the world of football, especially the guys who are playing, that you always should have more safe because of raining days. These things happen. When you and I have never had no control over it. It happened out of the blue. It affected football club in financially in a big way. So a lot of people have to adapt going forward. As I said before, the the League One and League Two club are the guys that really feeling them more than the Championship club. They seem to be okay with it.
Do they want to play football again this season, Fabrice? Do you think they want to come back, or are they quite happy now to plan for next season in Leagues 1 and 2 in particular?
But it sort of depends how you look at it. You know, if you said they want to come back play, well, what's the sense behind it? You know, are we gonna just focus on the guys in a playoff position, and you have the top 2 to get promoted and the bottom 3 to get relegated? The guys that from the League One, the top 2 or to get promoted, and the bottom 3 they get relegated. So there's so many different agenda in terms of going back to playing football. You know, I'm not sure if you read a lot. I think 2 weeks ago, the chairman of Brighton was so against it was so against the return of the Premier League. Well, if you look in the Premier League table, because Brighton are bottom 3, so you can see his viewpoint in terms of, you know, why you don't want the game to return. And if you ask a Liverpool fan, they'll be like, oh, we have to go back and play because we want to celebrate that Premier League trophy because it's been a long time. So everybody has a different agenda. So last week, Troy didn't come out and said he doesn't want to go back and play. No, he doesn't want to go back and train because he's got a young baby. He's worried that, you know, somebody might affect him and take him home and affect his missus and his kid. So everyone has a different agenda of why they want to go back, why they don't want to go back. And it's about finding a common ground and come together trying to find a solution for it.
With this, listen, Fabrice, none of us have reacted the same way to this because some of us are self-employed, some have got employed jobs. Yeah. But do you think this has been a chance for some people just to take a big deep breath and slow down?
Oh yeah. As I said before, it made you realize that you know, with the power of the technology, do you really have to go to the office? Because everything can be done online, you know. Yeah, we can go to the office, you know, but do we really have to? You know, and also it shows you that you can work anywhere around the world as long as you have access to internet. You can do conference call. You know, yes, we have to go to a meeting. We can do meeting call. This is it. You know, there's a lot of things going forward. I think it will question a lot of it. Employer will question exactly is it worth to do because of what we find going forward, what you're capable of doing. You know, at the end of the day, we're human beings. We sometimes doubt ourselves how much we're capable of to do. You know, and this pandemic has shown that we are capable of doing a lot of good things within ourselves.
Have you missed going out into the real world though, Fabrice, in the last few weeks?
Yes. Obviously, the first 3 weeks of it, I was like, okay, you know, this is what. But then the 4th week was like, okay, I need to get out there more. But slowly and surely, you can see life is start to go back to the normal self again. You know, people start to travel a little bit further. You start to see more, you know, your neighbors and, you know, your family member that you've not seen for a while. Yes, there is that aspect that you miss, you know, socializing with your loved one, and also your member of family. But also there is absolutely there is a side that you have to remember that the reason why we're doing this because we have to protect the self. Especially somewhere like me, I have to stay indoor. You know, because I know if I'm exposed myself to that condition, it won't be good for me. So for me, I look at it, I have to stay in, regardless of what anybody told me. You know,
let's expand on that a little bit, Fabrice, because I think it's a massively important thing. Probably, I mean, this pandemic is scary. It's put a sense of perspective on a lot of things, right? But compared to what you've been through, right, and what you went through, I mean, something like this to say that you've got to stay indoors is going to be like an instant, you know, puts you in a vulnerable situation. So, like, how do you face that mentally? Are you like, oh, do you know what? I've done that before. I've faced worse. I'll get through this. Or does it make you face your mortality, considering that you've got I know how important your family are.
No, I think once you see once you watch the news, every day you hear this person has died from this person dies of the same condition. So really and truly, it's not a no-brainer situation where if they tell you to stay inside for your own benefit, then you might as well do it. You know, because long term, you know, if you disobey that law or you decide to do something different, the really people that would be affected by it is your family, your missus, and the kids, because you decided to do that. You caught the virus, down the line, think something happened and they lost you, and all of a sudden you're like, they've gone, they don't have you anymore. So you have to be very mindful. Also, just remove that selfishness out of you and just play the role within a team of saying, I'm gonna stay indoor for foreseeable future.
I think that's a sensible option, because knowing your wife as well, she would come and find you on the other side. I've got no doubt, mate. I've got no doubt. Wouldn't she? So I think what's evident is, though, that your story is kind of infamous for what you went through, and then what you stand for, the message that you give out now is even more important. It's more potent. And then clearly, we talk about some of the stuff that you've done and how the good that you want to do. Let's talk briefly in a couple of minutes about what it is that you really want to do. If this pandemic hadn't hit and you could wave a magic wand, and we've just seen Zidane over there and kind of what he's done. We know that you're a good coach. Or I know you're a good coach. I know because you've spent time in the lower leagues, and I know what you've done voluntary and how many hours you've put in to try and make things happen at different clubs. It'd be good to come back to think, you know what, with all this experience and this that's happening right now, what's the message? What's the message for the next generation of kids that are coming through that want to go and play football?
I think that the message is very simple. Don't put all your egg in one basket. You're not guarantee if you start at the football club at age 7, you're not guarantee you're going to be there at age 18, because the way the competition is now, the way young players are coming through, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of young kids out there who want to have the same ambition and same drive as you. But you also have to remember that, you can go out there and you get injured, that will be you done for the rest of your career. So be open-minded, be open-minded to that it might not happen to that place that you want to play, but it might happen to a different club, as long as you have that openness. And also, as I said before, just plan ahead and just have something on a side, just in case the world football don't that doesn't work out for you, because it doesn't always work out. As I said before, not everybody start in at age 7 end up playing in the Premier League.
Football is getting better. I know the PFA does good work, Fabrice, but do you think football is getting better at realising that message now, or they will do after when this finishes?
I think, our honest opinion, I think football have become more and more lazy because they rely on other people to do their legwork for them. Yes, I understand the idea of focusing on playing football, and you want to do well, you want to be successful. But the game training, well, I think most clubs have a different routine. Training finish at 2, training finish at 1. You got your rest of your life to plan ahead. So it is about prioritizing what's important for you. Also take ownership of your own career.
Sorry, I just want to expand on that, because it's something that Brian is quite passionate about young players in particularly, kind of just making it and breaking into their next generation, and how important a mentor is. And Brian's work, or Brian's company, kind of works with and helps those sorts of things. Wouldn't you say, Brian? Are you kind of fitting that niche, aren't you?
Yeah, I think where we're at with it is we feel that players need to take ownership of themselves all the way through. The more reliance you have on advisors, agents, whatever, to do these things for you, the more reliant you're going to be on them after you finish playing, which isn't a good place, actually, because by the time you get to your second career, they're already gone and thinking about who's next. So it's totally true what Fabrice is saying. I think players have got lazy because of the amounts of money, and when you earn that kind of money, I think you don't really understand the value of it. For example, I'll give you an example. I started my coaching badges when I was more or less when I finished playing. But when I was doing it up in Scotland, and I saw players there who were going on coaching courses at, say, 23, 24, 25, because they recognized that the money's not going to take them all the way through, and they had to think about what is next. So we have a different attitude down here, but ownership of your own life, financial literacy, all of these things, are going to be so important moving forward, because I don't think that the level, the kind of money in contracts is going to be there. I mean, if I'm a club, why would I put somebody on £100,000, £200,000 a week when we can have another pandemic?
No, it's a good shout. No, it's a good shout.
Just my thoughts.
I think going back to Fab's role at Bolton, Crewe, Wigan, Carlisle, Accrington, Salford, I think that's where the game, well, not just the game, and the world's taking a 20% pay cut as we stand, and I think there'll be more to follow. And I can't see football and all sports. I just can't see them coming back in exactly the same place in which we entered this pandemic. So
I think going forward, that when you used to hear a transfer window, somebody going for £100 million, I don't care what you say, that's not happening. That's not happening for God knows the next 5-6 years, because club will be so aware of their financial situation, and even working at the PFA and reading some of the contract of the lower league players, and you see what the clubs are putting in now going forward. Imagine what the big boys will be able to do. The level of restriction, the level of power that they want to control of the contract.
Where does that leave agents then, Fab?
What's that?
Where does that leave the power of the agents going forward?
Power of the agent. That's my other thing. What I learned now, I wish I learned when I was younger.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need an agent.
You wouldn't what, Fab? Sorry,
I wouldn't need one. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't have had an agent.
Nah.
What would you need? Just a lawyer, an accountant?
We can just you as I said. When you want to buy a house, you get to a lawyer, right? A lawyer is similar to an agent. Matter of fact, a lawyer is more qualified than an agent.
Yeah.
Right? A sporting lawyer is more knowledgeable about the sporting laws than a football lawyer, than a football agent. And this is speaking normally.
Yeah.
To be an agent, it takes you 10 minutes.
Yeah.
To be a lawyer, it will take you a good 3 or 4 years.
True.
So why would I put my trust into somebody who has more than 6 or 7 clients, right, on a different retainer, which is fair enough, but he only works for me when I need to work for me.
Yeah.
Why can I just do it myself? Why can I
Every
just
time he comes to you in 2 years, he says to you, I've got you another deal, I can get you another 20-30 million.
You also have to know that the players have so much power, that you can, if a club wants to give you a new deal, you can just ask them, what is your proposal? Give it to me in the paper, send me an email, I'll go to see a lawyer. I said, what do you think?
Good shout.
And I'll go back to the club and just, this is it.
Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
That way, there is no middleman, and everybody's happy, and we just move on.
I told you he was a smart lad.
I was just going to say, it's funny, isn't it, how both myself and Fabrice have finished playing, and if we look back at the roles that certain people played in our career as agents, for example, you realise how, a lot of the time they get themselves into a position where you feel as though you need them. And I, for one, I try and tell kids now that you are self-employed. You're going to benefit from how well you do on the pitch. And that's a different way to look at it. But it's also very hard for players in those situations to actually believe in themselves.
To actually see it.
Yeah.
Good shout. So let's spin it out with anybody. I know you're a big basketball fan, right, Fab? Who's your team?
You know what? Any team that involves LeBron James, I like where LeBron plays. So anytime he involves LeBron, I like where he plays.
I understand that. So there's a character that kind of does a heck of a lot and a good role model to follow, and he's a smart cookie as well. Then let's be. Yeah. So you're enjoying the Last Dance on Netflix right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Compare LeBron James and Michael Jordan.
Well, there's a similarity. There is a similarity, but Michael is just
levels.
It's too far ahead. Put it that way. There's a lot of similarity of the playing style, but in terms of the mental side of it, to obviously they start from being very skinny guys, build himself up, win a championship, get off to playing baseball, come back, losing his father, winning a game. It takes a lot of mental strength to be able to be who he is.
So what can football learn from people like that?
Yeah.
What can footballers learn?
Yeah, but you've got to understand the way football is. Whereas in basketball, one person has to earn more money than everybody. Whereas in football, everybody is almost in the same wavelength-ish, you know. And in basketball, there's, I think, 38 game or 40 game a season. Whereas in football, pretty similar. But the level of demand in terms of playing, whereas in football, if you're involved in the Champions League, it's Saturday, Tuesday. If clubs are not involved in the Champions League, it's just a Saturday game. Whereas in basketball, you can go Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Saturdays. That's so much demand. And it's a very competitive in terms of physical demand and mentally. It's very competitive.
If you consider now football, just the last year alone, let's take Liverpool and City's schedule in the Champions League, the Premiership, and the other clubs that they're playing like 4 games every week. So that level of intensity is ridiculous. I mean, you've played at that level, so has Brian. You know that level of intensity is difficult to do, right? Do you think, and this, I'm going to be controversial, do you think that with the current way was going right now, if we were going to go back and finish this season, okay, one, do you think it needs to be ditched? And without going on the controversy of was it a conspiracy theory set up against everybody else, and the Premiership trying to make it really easy with VAR for Liverpool? Would you say, if we started this season again, do you think Liverpool would still go ahead and win the Premiership?
I think for me, Liverpool, they've been the best team for the past
So if we started again this season, scrap.
They've been the best team in the country for the past 2 seasons.
Okay.
And I think when you go to Anfield, some of the team that play Liverpool, just watching the guys warming up, they all look like they just lost the game before even the game kicked off. So they've created this fear factor at Anfield that they have that mental advantage over so many teams in the Premier League. You know, yes, you know, Man City will play Liverpool at Etihad, very different, very open, very expansive football, toe to toe. Man City will go to Anfield, it's cage. So it shows you the level of respect that they have to carry towards Liverpool at Anfield, you know. And I think,
can I say about the basketball there, Fab, just for a minute, please? How would Michael Jordan fitted into a dressing room in football? How would he be managed? How would you have had to manage Michael Jordan if you were a football manager?
But with Michael, I think certain player, you get to a level when you play with somebody or you play with some of the best player, you just have to let them do what they do best, because they know they're the game winner. They know what to do when it comes to, you know, injury time. They know how to handle pressure. Now it's for them to lead the rest of the bunch to come with him. You know, it's almost like, you know, get Ronaldo to play for Bolton.
Yeah.
I don't need to coach Ronaldo to play for Bolton. Him alone, he would just carry Bolton by himself. And everybody that's involved at Bolton change room, you just have to do what Ronaldo did.
Would football let him be not late, because you can't be late, that's disrespectful, but if he would you cut him a little bit of leeway so that he can just be himself? Because Michael Jordan was a maverick. LeBron James was a maverick. Eric Cantona was a maverick. Brian Dean was a maverick.
I think different players have different attitude. Michael Jordan's very focused on becoming the best he can be. At the same time, on that road, he's not going to please everybody. However, you have a teammate called Dennis Rodman. Dennis is not everybody favor. It's not everybody flavor. However, Dennis need 2 nights out to get himself together, then come back in, you get it, and he has a good game. However, in football, that's never going to happen. Imagine I'm going to give you 2 days off while the other guys are working hard, and come back in and let you say, you know what, you play. It's impossible.
Yeah,
you know?
Tevez tried, didn't he?
You know, so every player's you have to find a way to manage them, and in football is very much of just we in it together. Whereas in basketball, there's a leeway of just say, okay, he need this type of attention, he need this type of attention, and but at the same time, when it comes to the game day, he's always ready to perform.
In those days at Bolton, Fab, from 2008 to 2012, there were some good players at that in that club at that stage.
Yeah,
and I should think some characters, some different characters. How were they managed? Because they weren't all straightforward people, were they?
No, you know what? My year at Bolton, my first year, we had a very big personality group, massive personality, guys who've so much. And I mean, you have people like Kev Nolan, Kev Davies, UC Escalana, Matty Taylor, Ricardo Gardner, J. Samuels, all these guys been in the Premier League for a very long time and season in and out. So to come in there, I realized pretty quickly that one thing that Bolton requires is just you have to work very hard. Then from there, if we get a result, then we can have a day or two off, and then we can come back and play again. So during the season, during the first season, we got to 40 points by February. So we're in a very decent position, all right, which means we're almost guaranteed we'll be in the Premier League for next season. So by Easter, we go to 45. And we're already out of the FA Cup. Here come the FA Cup weekend. So Gary Mason said, you know what, guys, we're in a decent position because we've done okay this season. We're in a very good position. How about we go away a week in Dubai? And that's the way he was able to get a team to work together. Some team can go do a team bonding somewhere else, but it's so hard to be managed in terms of we're away for a week, but at the same time we're working for a week as well.
I'm glad you mentioned. Sorry,
Michael. That's important. In the downtime in any sport is massive, particularly leading up to a big game and stuff like that. The importance of it was shown. I think if you're going back to how Phil Jackson handled that and how he handled the general manager at the time, because I think there was a lot of interference going on there, and I think it was put in there specifically to play that role of an agitator, as I read between the lines, by the owner of the club. And I don't know if you got the same principle about that, because we're talking about historically what had happened, but I think there was an agitator put in place to that to make sure that Phil Jackson was always on it. And we've spent time with some of the great managers, including Pep, and one of the things that ever came out was, the guys walk about with their CVs or resignation letters in their pocket, and we thought we were joking, and actually said no, it's here, and showed us the letter. It's like they literally are on pins like that, and it makes you think, because Phil Jackson was the same thing, and they're the same principle. I wonder if Jurgen Klopp's doing the same.
And as a leader, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking to me in my little pub up here called the Shankly Arms, because my dog the other side of the door is called Shankly. So where I think about leadership. I think Klopp's the closest we've seen to a Shankly-style leader in British football. Well, Sir Alex, of course, but he gets the city, he gets the culture, he gets the mood, he gets everything about Liverpool Football Club, and I think he keeps everyone on their toes in the right way. But I think also, if you were a player, you'd absolutely adore him because he trusts you. And I still say, and there's some very good football people on this call and two brilliant footballers as well, that the fourth goal against Barcelona, I think only Liverpool could literally have scored that goal, which was the quick corner taken by Trent Alexander-Arnold, because I think he gives them freedom to try things, because Fabrice will tell me, Ibrahim will tell me, set plays are now a big part of football, and you rehearse those like a musician rehearses an instrument.
Yeah, you'd
but
think.
when he saw that the keeper wasn't watching, and the defenders weren't watching, and they turned their back, he just turned around, whipped the ball in, and every baby in Liverpool's called Divock for the next few months. So,
absolutely. What would be interesting to find out from Brian and Fabrice is how would you have fared under Klopp? So if you were playing at Liverpool right now, how would you have fared under his management style?
Would you, me or?
Yeah.
Brian, you have a go. Brian, how would you have fared playing up front for Liverpool in that under Klopp?
Okay, so it's interesting this, because I went to the LMA dinner when they were both inaugurated into the Hall of Fame. and they were answering questions. And I looked at both managers, and I looked at my career and how, you know, the managers that I played for, and I concluded that, you know, people were saying, well, you know, where do you think this? And there was a lot of in the room. You could tell that Jurgen Klopp was a lot more relaxed than Pep was, I think, because of the points and everything else. But I think for me personally, I would have preferred to play under Jurgen Klopp, because I get the impression that he's somebody who will put the arm around you, and he will say, listen, it's just a game of football. And, you know, footballers, the mindset of footballers is one that we're very kind of, we feed off, you know, we feed off, is that okay? Have I done well? You know, you need somebody who is going to reassure you all the time that what you're doing is right. And I think that's what Jurgen Klopp is very good at. So if I was a forward and I'd not scored for 3-4 games, I get the impression Jurgen Klopp would come in and say, listen, Brian, don't worry about it. You know, just give us this and the goals will come. I get the feeling that under Pep, he's very intense, and there are players who that management style suits, and they rise to that kind of scrutiny, and they get off on that. I think for me personally, I would have felt better under Klopp, because I feel that I would have been able to grow more. I think the scrutiny, and this is just probably a failing on me, but I feel the scrutiny that I would have come under with Pep. I'm not sure if that intensity or freedom, and I think for me it would be the freedom of developing myself. So I think that's where I would be happier, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's a really well thought out answer as well. I think there's some real intrinsic stuff. What work's been done that. Fab, how would you fare, mate?
I think for me, you look at Jurgen Klopp, it gives you that feeling of that, you know, I can run for this guy. I can run for I can go out there and do the job for him, because he's very affectionate in terms. But to be fair, him and Pep, they have that affectionateness in terms of the players. But there's one thing that stands for me for Pep is that I think when I think it was in the cup final, Raheem Sterling missed the chance after the game. Obviously, Man City won, but he put Raheem to a side. He kept talking about the chance that he missed, whereas in compared to Pep, it's more of just, I didn't say it, no worry at all. We can go again tomorrow, and you just feel like this guy gives you that. I want to really work for this guy. You know, as I said, he has left such a positive note in his previous club that every single player that's played under him always speaks so well about him. You know, whereas when you speak to guys that play under Pep, you know, people like Eto'o, people like Ronaldinho, people like Thierry, there's this a negative feeling that, well, his Pep is good, but also is this type of person.
Yeah.
You know.
Fabrice, you're still a very young man. Mate, you look as fit now as you were when you were actually playing. Would you ever want to coach or lead or manage?
Yeah, I think every player would. I think every player will tell you the best thing after playing football is probably to be in the touchline, just to see if you got it in you or not.
You want to?
Yeah, why not?
Ask him what the job would be. Go on.
What would the job be for you then, Fabrice? The best job for you or the best role?
I mean, I have a huge love for Bolton. I'm happy to take Bolton job.
Even now?
Yes. Oh yes, of course.
How would you, with all that Bolton have been through, and there's a lot of affection for you and Bolton, and you still clearly love Bolton Wanderers. How would you have coped with what they went through when Phil Parkinson was manager and the players weren't getting paid, and eventually I was working for a club last year, Fabrice, and our game was called off against Bolton, the last game of the season, because they couldn't field a side. How would you have coped with that? That's real pressure. That's real pressure. That's not winning and losing. That's actually trying to keep jobs alive.
I think Phil deserves a lot of credit because how he handled the whole situation through, because he had a chairman who wasn't honest enough from the get-go. He was clearly there just to make money and move on. So in terms of handling player, it's just you have to try to remain positive. have to try to. I think there's a time where he loaned money to some of the younger players. He pays for some of the younger players. You know, and also they find themselves in a very bad predicament because of how it's not just the past owner, but it's also the guys before that. They just didn't handle the money management of the football club really properly. So when the new owner came in, it affected him, and also which means it affected the club. You know, but as a guy who's leading the team, you have to remain positive. You have to try to remain positive as much as you can. Win or lose, you have to tell the guys, you know, we're in it together.
Which managers, coaches did you enjoy playing for, particularly Fabrice?
I enjoyed most when I played under Steve Bruce at the Birmingham City. You know, Steve has, you know, he really took care of me in terms of just when I left Arsenal and I went to Birmingham, I was still like 18, 19, and I was playing the championship. But what Steve really did, it was more like hey, listen, Fabrice, you know, say if you like we're coming towards November time, we had about 7 games, and he told me, give me good 4 game, I'll give you free game off. So which means I'll be involved, but I won't be in the starting 11. You know, and I think that for me helped me to build my fitness going forward. So I was able, by January, I was able to play Saturday, Tuesday because of the demand of the championship. But he was, in the beginning, he made sure that he looked after me very well in that aspect.
I'm glad you say that, because today, Fabrice, is the 4th anniversary of I worked under Steve Bruce at Hull City, and 4 years ago today we won the playoff final. Beat Sheffield Wednesday 1-0, and I had 3 years with Steve Bruce, and I'm often baffled by why people question him as a manager sometimes, because I learned so much from those 3 years working with Steve Bruce. I always said he had 2 pairs of eyes, one at the front and one at the back, because he didn't miss anything on the training ground. He could read a room beautifully. He could read a dressing room. He could read the canteen. He could read the physio's room. And I found him a fascinating man to work for, because I felt that he just tapped into people's individual needs rather than treated everyone just as a mass of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we went to Birmingham alone, it was myself, Seb Larson, and Nicholas Bentner. So there's 3 young guys from Arsenal, and the way he managed each of us, it was just completely different, but in a good way. But at the same time, he got the best out of us, just the way he managed us.
I remember leading up to the playoff situation at Hull City, because it's clear we were going to finish in the top 6, but not in the top 2. And the way he individually managed players in those 2 or 3 weeks, giving people 5 days off, 7 days off. One of them, Mohamed Diame, who scored the winner at Wembley, he gave him a week off just to go back to Paris and chill out and calm down. And that rest time, I believe, was absolutely vital. So I'm often amazed he doesn't get more credit. By the way, whilst I have you, Fabrice, one of my next door neighbours in the next village here is Matty Taylor.
Oh, send my regard to Matty.
I will send his regards to Matty. And if I'm allowed to ask this, because I might see him in a dog walk in a couple of days' time, was he good to play with?
No, Matty's a good footballer. He's a good runner. He's a very fit guy in terms of running. He's very fit. Matty is one of the guys who always 11K every game, 11K, 12K, you know. But yeah, Matty's a good footballer. I believe he's doing his coaching at Spurs right now. So yeah,
he's doing his badges. He stopped last year and he played 750 games. And I admire anyone that can play 750 games. I'm going to ask Brian how many he played. Brian, how many games did you play in your 38-year career?
I got to about 730.
That's not bad. That's not bad. How many injuries, Brian? In that, how many did you miss then?
I was pretty fortunate. I mean, I played for 21 years, and I think the worst injury was probably a torn groin muscle. I missed, you know, I had like ligament injuries and ankle ligament injuries and a hernia, but nothing that kept me out for any great length of time. So I was blessed from that point of view, very, very fortunate. Yeah, goes very quickly though.
So I've got an interesting spin on this, because before I ask you both what's the one thing that you learned from football, because Dave from Bolton's asking this, it'd be interesting if I said to you, you know, we're all going to meet in the pub, what's the one question you'd ask Fabrice? You know, there's nobody else around, we're sat having a pint. What's the one question you'd ask him if we were old mates around here? And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to ask Fabrice to do the same to you in a minute. So this is boot room banter, right? We're sat here. We're just meeting for a pint. We've just come from the training grounds, and we're all sat around, and it's like, come on, there's nobody about. What's the one question? What's the burning?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
God, yeah.
Because
Brian, if you got to play again, right?
Yeah.
What would you do different now that you know the game the way you know the game?
Okay. I would definitely have more belief in myself, because I think the thing that drove me was fear of failure. And so I think I'd just have more belief. I remember one time my brother, we were out in Spain one time, my brother was talking to Gary Pallister, and he said, does your brother know how good he can be? And I kind of, my brother came back and told me, and I was like, but you don't always know. You don't always have that confidence, I think. And I got rejected a lot as a kid, going for trials and so on. So maybe that had a little bit of that in me, but I would definitely, feel a little bit more relaxed and kind of think, I'll believe in myself a little bit more. I think that's a big thing for me that I look back on and kind of regret in some ways. Just
yeah. Now, if someone could have helped you with that, along the way, just think. I mean, you had a great career. You did some great things, and now you're doing some great things after this. So just imagine how you could have been with a tiny bit more belief.
I think just sorry, but I think one of the things was back when I was playing, there's a real stigma attached to sports psychology, and I actually went to see it, and I became a good friend of a guy called Mark Nesty, and what going to see Mark did for me was it kind of I kind of went back to my default switch and just started to think what got me to where I was. And, but at that time, if you said to somebody, oh, he's seen a psychologist, a sports psychologist or whatever, it was a real stigma. And it didn't bother me because I didn't see it like that. But I think the older generation, managers and so on, really felt that he's not strong enough or they're not strong enough, which you think about it now, and sports psychology plays a massive role in players' development now.
I'll stop you there, Brian. I'm a sports psychologist. I work in football. I've worked for 15 years in football.
Yeah.
You played roughly 730 games more than I played in football. Would it make any difference to you if I came into the football club tomorrow, having played 400 times for Salford or Accrington or Crewe? Would you think, oh yeah, I'll talk to him? But because I've got no background in football, do you think, what does he know?
I think there's a little bit of that in that, from a player, it's like, like you've talked about Steve Bruce. Now, Steve Bruce is a manager, but he also knows what those gut feelings are like when you're going on and you're going for a bad time and so on. So if you're getting advice from that, I think what happens with clubs is you have to, if a sports psychologist comes in, a lot of the time they have to either get vouched for or they have to gain the respect of the players.
That's more important. You've got to earn the respect first. And I think this is where, I think we spoke about it before, people go in with the premise of like, that they're entitled. There's an entitlement because they've been brought into the club, and that doesn't work. You've got to earn the respect of that boot room before you can begin to start to help them. And without that level of respect, that level of trust from the players,
it's not going to happen.
I know that. I've worked it out. I've been there cleaning boots. I've been there when it's been cold and it's been snowing, and I've been on the touchline with them in get a pair of shorts because I'm the new lad sort of thing. I've been there, done it all. So I kind of get that, what you're saying, but you have to earn that level of respect in any way, shape or form. Doesn't matter whether it's football, it's business or anything else like that. You've got to earn them players' respect. Because without that, they're not going to give you anything. So what question would you ask Fabrice, Brian?
Stole my thunder. Honestly, I mean, that's the question. I mean, God, yeah. I've got this thing about what would you,
What about something that he's taught him?
Okay, Fabrice. So if you're, how would you have planned for your second career looking back now?
I was fortunate enough that when I was playing at Birmingham, I used to study at Open University, University of Birmingham. So it helped a lot in terms of just doing a lot of stuff outside football. As you know, Brian, that in the championship, it's Saturday, Tuesday. So it got to the point where, like, I would be in front of the book. I was so tired that to even complete an assignment, it would take me a long time. And I always, my father, I think it's been ingrained in me because my father just wanted me to study. So for me, I always wanted to have something on the side just in case football never worked out for me. And I think nowadays, you're seeing people like Juan Mata with a master, Vincent with a master, Benteke with a master. So it just shows you that if you can put time to a side and you commit to it, you should be able to achieve it, regardless what other level that you.
Would you be an accountant, Fabrice? Would you be an accountant or?
Yeah. Because I think I'm halfway through the season. We start to learn about the spreadsheet, about counting and stuff like that. So I kind of got the hang of that, but it's just that because of the demand of playing every Tuesday and Saturday, it was like I couldn't be able to.
You must be a good school. You must be a good school teacher at home to your 3 boys, then.
No, that's one thing I drum into them. I said, listen, you have to have something in you. Listen, I've done what I can do for you guys, but I think you guys also should have some kind of qualification, some kind of knowledge. So yeah, I definitely drum into my boys every day.
So I've got one question to ask the pair of you. It's like, because VSI set off to do something with the academia world and in particular the sporting director's role, as well as the chief exec's role. They're looking at leadership, particularly executive education within sporting organisations. And one of the biggest things that, stigma back then was always around, oh, God, here's a professor, or here's a psych and stuff like that. Now that you've been bright enough to spot, what an education is going to be good for me if I can fit that alongside this. And some of the good players now, and some of the bright players are having an education alongside of those things, that they've got something to build on when they come out of sport. They're having that foresight that they never had before. Do you think that a role of a sporting director, do you think there's more? That's only evolved in the past 20 odd years, and it's probably come from the stuff that's happened in the States first, and we've followed. Do you think that that role A is going to evolve, and B, do you think there's going to be more needed for the executives to be educated within the footballing organisations?
Well, you've seen it across the European clubs, the Dortmund, the Bayern Munich, the Ajax. They always have a sporting director. They always have a director of football. But the director of football is either an ex-player who played in that club, which they've groomed to be in that position. So he knows the football club really well, and he knows the people upstairs, and he has a good relationship with the manager. And I think as time goes on now, it's gonna some point kicking in England where you're gonna have that, and you're gonna need that. However, it's all about having that good relationship between your job is really, you're the middleman between the manager and the CEO. So if you can build a good, strong relationship, you should be able to help the manager rather than to be seen somebody who's coming from their own personal agenda in that position.
Well, you just said that going to education and doing the accountancy and studying alongside what you were doing, that gave you an understanding of business and finances in particular. I know you're a shrewd guy, but if you think that you can put someone that has just a level of connection, do you think how much importance that they also need to have the skills and the abilities to understand the commerce and the business alongside it, and the figures, and be able to do the spreadsheets as good as you?
No, I think every school can be teachable. You can learn the school, you can learn something. I think what you have to do is you have to want to learn to do it. Yes, it's a position. Yeah, it sounds great, but you have to have that willingness of saying, I'm going to learn to do it. I'm new to this environment. I'm new to learn this thing. As long as you put yourself in a position where you're putting hours of learning that, the field properly, and ask questions and try to see people who's been there, done it, and just trying to learn from the past. And then hopefully when you're in that position, you'll be able to guide a sheep, to be fair.
Good answer. Michael, have you got one final question there before we hand over to Tony to kind of wrap up?
One question I'd want to ask Fabrice, because I grew up watching World Cups in the 70s, Fabrice, and I think it was the 1974 World Cup. I watched Zaire play, and I always wanted to go to Zaire and watch and play football. What was it like growing up as a young boy in Zaire, learning to play football? And where did you learn to play football? Was it in the school? Was it in the communal area? Was it out just in a rural back?
In the Congo, we just play football in the street, so there's no a boundary. They just go out there and enjoy yourself in the play.
And how long did you play for? Hours upon hours upon hours?
Oh, I think the way it works in the Congo in terms of school, it works that you have the guys who start school at 8 o'clock, finish at 12, and guys who start school at 1 o'clock, finish at 5 o'clock. So if you're in the mornings, so basically the primary school guy literally goes in the morning, and the secondary guys go to the afternoon. So when you're in a primary school, you tend to play more in the afternoon. And when you're in the secondary, you tend to play football in the morning. So
I love the fact that, because the world and sport has changed, but it was just unstructured street type football for hours upon hours upon hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way. I think most of the best footballers are probably the guys who play street football. You know, if you look at people like Wilfred Zaha, he's probably the most street footballer you can get. You know, because these guys, if you look at it, there is failures in him, there is tricks in him. However, it gets frustrated when he gets kicked, which is understandable. But the way he played, he's definitely a street footballer.
Thank you. It's been lovely meeting you. It's been lovely meeting you. You look so relaxed. You look so happy, and you look so well.
Oh, thank you.
And not only a good footballer, you're also a brilliant school teacher. I can tell that as well. I'm sure Brian is. I'm sure Brian is as well. Aren't you, Brian? Brian,
sure.
By the way, Brian, you started off on the moon. I think you should be California. That could be the Humber Bridge, though, if we're being Yorkshirish.
No, it's definitely California. I'm quick.
Just checking.
Still quick.
It's not Hessel down by the Humber. Fabrice, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you guys. Have a good day.
Your boys be wanting their tea now.
Yeah,
Exactly. Tony, have you got anything to wrap off for next week, or we've got any final words?
Fabrice from VSI, thanks very much for your time this evening. Good speaking to you, and hopefully catch up soon. Brian, as always, we'll catch up in the week. And Michael, Tim, thanks for your time in hosting the session. Until next week, see you then, guys.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye now.